If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Things looking up in 2019. You had 312,000 jobs created in December, according to last week's report. You got Elizabeth Warren admitting she's not a person of color.
I saw that. She was in Iowa this weekend, went to 5 different cities, and that was crazy because someone asked her about, why'd you get the DNA testing done? And then she went on like, I'm not a woman of color. I do not belong to a tribe.
Better inform Harvard Law School because that's not how they profiled her as a member of the faculty. But that's okay. It was just get progress comes in fits and starts. Also, hey. Thelma has found her Louise. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has found Rashida Tlaib. And the two of those gals together are going to take the Democratic Party right off the, well, I won't tell you how it ends. Ocasio-Cortez, profiled by a restrained, because it's tough to restrain his giddiness, Gloria Vanderbilt's kid there on 60 Minutes yesterday.
Was he doing tequila shots? Because he did for his New Year's Eve special.
Missed that.
You didn't know. Oh, yeah. Did tequila shots and then talked about who his mom slept with. Marlon Brando. It was very uncomfortable.
So he and his girlfriend Don Lemon, they dished?
No, Andy, or what's his name? Andy Cohen was with him. But they dished.
Any body shots off Don Lemon's ripped abs? No.
But anyway, so now he's back to covering news or what's perceived as news.
Ocasio-Cortez is the thought leader, which I know is one of those phrases you're supposed to remove from your lexicon in 2019. But it seems appropriate for Ocasio-Cortez, thought leader of the left. She's got a 12-year plan to do a bunch of things, including make America fossil fuel free. All the details aren't in place, but, thinking big thoughts.
Would convert the entire U.S. economy to renewable sources of energy in just 12 years, while guaranteeing every American a job at a fair wage.
You're talking about zero carbon emissions, no use of fossil fuels within 12 years?
That is the goal. It's ambitious. And
how is that possible? You're talking about everybody having to drive an electric car?
It's going
Tesla.
to require a lot of rapid change that we don't even conceive as possible right now. What is the problem with trying to push our technological capacities to the furthest extent possible?
This would require, though, raising taxes.
There's an element where, people are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes.
Do you have a specific on the tax rate?
You look at our tax rates back in the 60s, and when you have a progressive tax rate system, your tax rate, let's say from $0 to $75,000 may be 10% or 15%, et cetera. But once you get to the tippy tops on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
What a dissertation.
70% more. She wants to tax the wealthy.
I think what you should do
climate change
is stick to the Breakfast Club dancing routine that she's getting more positive press on. But she wanted to make it clear she's a socialist. Oh, yeah. But not in the Castro, Venezuelan Trotsky way.
What of my policies most closely resemble what we see in the UK, in Norway, in Finland, in Sweden?
Actually, they don't.
No, they don't.
In
Sweden, the more money you make, the less you pay in taxes.
Well, in Sweden, the difference is, for example, and this is why Sweden often ranks ahead of America on economic freedom indices. So Sweden has this thing called private pensions. Yeah. Sweden has this thing called school choice.
Pensions. Yep.
I wonder.
They privatized the railway system there too.
With this pending L.A. school teacher strike. So is Ocasio-Cortez supporting school choice in L.A., or is she going to stand with the teachers' unions? She doesn't even know what she believes. She's a 29-year-old nitwit who's captured America's heart and the Democrat Party, and boy, is it fun to watch. There's a funniness too. There's another moment in that 60 Minutes thing where Anderson Cooper politely questions her about all the things where she is like catastrophically wrong, absurdly wrong, $21 trillion Pentagon budget, and these sorts of things, and she essentially gives the Trump answer, which is I'm directionally correct. The details aren't important. What's important is I'm morally right. It's fascinating. For more on this topic and a dissection of Scandinavian tax policy, we're pleased to be joined by Jim Pethokoukis, CNBC contributor and columnist for the American Enterprise Institute. Jim, thanks for joining us. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year.
So what do you think about Ocasio-Cortez's ambitious, as she terms it, 12-year plan?
Well, listen, I'm a big believer on the factually correct side. I guess I'm old-fashioned. I understand like the having high aspirations and high goals, but I think it's at least important that we know the politician understands that their goals are aspirational, going to be extraordinarily hard, realizes what the trade-offs are, and then last point, understanding the trade-offs. That if you want one thing, you may have to give up another thing. I think that's really important. That's what you often don't hear about, like the costs and the benefits, when you hear people who are activists describe policy. And right now she's talking more like an activist than a serious policymaker. Which, listen, I think she's about the most important Democrat there is. She's changing the Democratic debate. Now everyone else is talking about a Green New Deal. You'll have other Democrats talking about much higher tax rates. So she's a thinkfluential. Absolutely.
But that's a new word,
one.
thinkfluential. That could replace the thought leader for 2019.
But did you laugh when she suggested taxing the wealthy 70%?
Listen, that's a high tax rate.
Yeah.
That's a tax rate I haven't seen in this country for since the 1960s. And I think there's somehow the idea that there is no downside because the economy grew fast in the past when they had high tax rates, even though it was a very different economy, a very different tax code. Again, those differences often get ignored, which is how activists talk. They don't give you the context. So she's still talking like an activist and someone pushing an idea rather than someone who's going to be serious and really think about the differences between now and then and the downside to perhaps doubling top tax rates at a time when the U.S. already faces a historic downshift in economic growth.
The other thing, it's a good point you bring up. Like, we have to have adult conversations with people about concepts that everyone should have learned in high school, like we live in a world of scarcity, which is what you were describing. But politicians, both sides, play this game because they know that the public isn't great at comprehending or wanting to deal with abstractions. So making choices, because we live in a world of scarcity, and also the concept of opportunity cost. So, what didn't happen or what could have happened or what did happen because you chose one policy to the exclusion of other. There are costs that you pay, and this is sort of the trade-off thing as well. So, yes, will people still get along if you increase the top margin rate to 70%? Sure, just like they did previously. But the impact that would have.
Dan, there has been zero research on the impact of very high tax rates on how people pick their careers, whether they decide to become, Elon Musk, or they decide to do something else with their lives. Again, she nor Paul Krugman, they have any idea, and that's pretty important, what people decide to do with their lives, not just how a higher tax rate affects revenues over the next 2 years. Yeah, there's research on that kind of stuff. But like the bigger, longer-term stuff that's really, really important, they have no idea, and they're just picking numbers out of a hat because the U.S. grew at a certain rate 50 years ago.
Well, and also,
serious.
Also, too, isn't this just illustrative of the mind's eye here? So they look at people as revenue agents for the state. They don't look at people in terms of their personal fulfillment, development, contribution on their own terms. And so that's a real distinction in terms of worldview.
It's understanding that you're dealing with human beings whose behavior is influenced by things, is influenced by incentives and how policy encourages or discourages certain actions. One of the key sort of breakthroughs that we had in this country is that tax rates matter. They're not the only thing that matter, but they matter how people behave. And she's saying, well, to the extent she's thought it through, that everything else would be the same, but we'll have a 70% top tax rate. And look at those other countries, they also have value-added taxes. All the money isn't coming from rich people. It's coming from everybody. And Democrats are very worried that middle-class people will not accept higher taxes for their plans because they don't talk about it, and they only talk about people who make $10 million or more.
All right, switching gears here. Dan mentioned earlier that December job report, U.S. added 312,000 jobs. The unemployment, though, went up to 3.9%. Why did the job numbers and the unemployment rate go up?
Right, because the workforce. You have people coming off the sidelines. The workforce gets bigger, so we really don't care about the higher unemployment if you have more people actively looking for work. So that's fine. I don't care about. No one cares about that 3.9% number. Listen, it's a lot more jobs. That's great. It's pretty impressive for an economy that's been this long of an expansion, and the economy looks like it will be slowing. We can still generate jobs. You still might see the unemployment rate go down, but I wouldn't expect the economy to go as fast over the next couple of years as it did last year.
Now, I know kind of stock picking is not your forte or focus. But there's an interesting data point I saw over the holidays as the market was all over the place. Midterm election years, this is from some analyst, the Dow was off 16%. There's a sell down 16%, and that's about where it was at the end of the year. And the year following midterm elections, this is Republican and Democrat presidents, up 32%. Is that just more sort of fun with numbers, or do you expect this to be a good year to be in equities?
I am not a registered representative.
I understand.
I am not a money manager. What I can say is that 2019 looks like a year of slower growth. That's not going to be great for profits. You have a trade war, maybe not so great for profits.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you how to invest. Listen, I'm a long-term investor. Dan, I know you're still a day trader. It's always the 90s for you. You're always
the go-go 90s.
I don't have it. I don't have that in me. God bless you.
It's a high wire act over here, Jim. That's the way I live.
Yeah, that's how you love the adrenaline rush. Not so much.
Well, you've got a family to look after, so I understand. You got to be a little bit more reserved.
I know you like going all in every day, all day. I'm a little more cautious.
The problem is I just keep watching Rounders, and it works out for Matt Damon in the end. So I figure, at some point I got to be Teddy KGB. He is Jim Pethokoukis, CNBC contributor, columnist for the American Enterprise Institute. Jim, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
I'm Lou Dobbs.